Because if you ain't stuck up her butt 24/7, she gonna go to the next man.
You claim he repaid your generosity by sleeping with your girlfriend. Over which of you fathered 2-year-old Brett Wiseman? With Mr. Wiseman's girlfriend was strictly a friendship.
Yes.
You argue it only became sexual when she confided that Mr. Wiseman was not treating her right.
Yes.
Protective of her, so much so you would not let her appear in this courtroom today because
Yes, Your Honor.
she's pregnant with your child.
I would go to sleep, and I didn't know that my cousin was going to sleep early, and they would be downstairs, just him and her. She would be telling him, somebody in her family came and told me. Becoming too close of friends, they've been doing stuff together. I had suspicions they wouldn't know I was coming over, and they would be sitting there, like, for instance, well, she likes playing.
She was at her grandma's house because they was already broke up because he cheated on her so many times and she was letting it go. Nobody but me.
Okay, hold on. Mr. New.
He was the one that was crying all day until he got what he wanted. Yes, he always accused her of cheating when she wasn't.
Together, she cheated on me with her ex-boyfriend. She was with both of us. I mean, she's always been a cheater.
Me and Jeremiah were going through problems. Tyler was like somebody I confided in at the time.
Slept with Mr. New while you were still in a relationship, albeit rocky, with Mr. Wiseman. And you did not use protection with either man?
No.
I mean, I definitely was happy, but I had doubts, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, our relationship, you know, and then when I found out about him, so yeah.
In Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, tension unfolds in slow layers, shaped by years of tangled relationships, hidden betrayals, and unanswered questions. What begins as a simple request for clarity transforms into a confrontation with deep emotional truths, legal principles, and the personal consequences that follow when families enter the evidence stage of a divorce case or a paternity dispute without understanding the weight of what they carry inside. The courtroom isn't merely a place of law. It is a space where broken promises, fractured trust, and long-buried admissions rise to the surface. Here, every story becomes a case study in the relationship between law and justice, echoing discussions often explored in the Game-Changing Attorney podcast or the Divorce Course podcast, where legal experts explain how emotion, truth, and proof collide. The case opens with individuals walking in already divided by suspicion. Judge Lauren Lake listens closely as each person explains why they believe the DNA test is necessary, though several of them openly admit that people regret taking such tests when the results tear families apart. But they also know that once a question of biological truth enters the courtroom, avoiding it is no longer possible. Under the Adverse Inference in Evidence Act, refusing clarity can sometimes imply guilt or hidden knowledge, and none of them want a legal shadow cast over their story. Their only option is to face the results, no matter how devastating. Judge Lake observes the emotional environment carefully. She understands that beneath every claim lies a story shaped by fear, insecurity, and a longing for certainty. The concept of justice in jurisprudence teaches that fairness is not only about following statutes, it is also about recognizing human vulnerability. And that is exactly what fills the room today. The alleged father stands firm, trying to maintain composure while carrying years of doubt. His partner, caught between defensiveness and exhaustion, insists that she has been truthful, though her voice trembles under the weight of her own contradictions. Family members stand on opposite sides, some defending her character, others accusing her of lies that have caused irreversible damage. The emotional layers resemble the raw honesty often heard in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where people finally acknowledge the truth of their actions and the consequences that have followed. Judge Lauren Lake asks each person to describe the timeline, the relationships, the moments of conflict, and the reasons trust collapsed. Their responses reveal a chaotic history, suspicions of infidelity, arguments about late-night whereabouts, friendships that became too intimate, and long gaps in communication that left room for doubt to grow. As each participant speaks, the courtroom transforms into a living archive of relational missteps and unspoken fears. Their accounts resemble DNA tests, cheating stories people share online, stories where a single mistake creates uncertainty that lasts years. In the courtroom, extended family members describe their concerns. Some insist the child deserves to know the truth. Others worry that revealing the truth could break the only stability the child has ever known. One relative even compares the situation to adoption stories' full episodes, where emotional and legal complications intertwine, forcing adults to face the responsibility of shaping a child's identity. Their testimonies reveal not only personal opinions, but also deeper questions about responsibility, love, and the law. Judge Lauren Lake reminds them that paternity cases are not about gossip or revenge. They are about a child's right to truth and stability. The courtroom quiets as she explains the importance of accurate paternity determination, especially in cases involving Supreme Court child support guidelines. A legally recognized father carries obligations, financial security, emotional presence, and long-term involvement. The law does not treat paternity lightly, and neither does she. As the presentation of evidence begins, the room feels like a pressure chamber. Each detail, dates, messages, confrontations, becomes part of the narrative the judge must sort through. Although there is no dramatic scene playing out, the emotional reality is clear. People are struggling against themselves as much as against one another. Moments of silence are weighted with years of resentment. Raised voices are softened by sudden pauses when someone remembers the presence of a child whose future depends on every word spoken today. The defendant explains his fear of the outcome. He admits he has doubted the paternity since the beginning, but also says he wanted to believe the child was his because the thought of not being the father felt like losing a part of himself. His testimony echoes something often said on legal and personal development podcasts. Truth changes everything, not only externally but internally. He fears that knowing the truth will either grant him peace or destroy his emotional connection to the child he has loved. The mother defends herself next, explaining the struggles she experienced during the relationship. She recounts moments when she felt unsupported, misunderstood, or overwhelmed. She claims she never tried to deceive anyone, though she admits she was emotionally confused during the period of conception. Her words reveal the internal battles she fought silently, battles that now stand exposed under the scrutiny of the court. Judge Lake listens without judgment but with firm clarity. She acknowledges the woman's feelings yet reminds her that parents carry duties that extend beyond emotion, duties grounded in both morality and law. The concept of justice in jurisprudence mandates honesty, especially when a child's future is at stake. Emotional explanations may soften the pain, but they cannot replace factual truth. Family witnesses describe additional layers of conflict. Disagreements over living arrangements, accusations of controlling behavior, claims of abandonment, and heated arguments that made reconciliation impossible. Some recount how the family tried to mend the situation, while others confess they encouraged the separation because they believed the relationship was unhealthy. Their testimonies reflect the complex intersection of family loyalty and legal responsibility, an intersection often explored in discussions about the relationship between law and justice. Through it all, Judge Lauren Lake remains composed, guiding the conversation with patience and authority. She ensures that everyone understands the gravity of the proceedings. She clarifies the legal process surrounding DNA testing, explaining how the evidence will be interpreted, how rights may shift depending on the result, and how the court's priority remains the child's welfare. The individuals in the courtroom show visible signs of emotional strain. Some wipe away tears, others look away, their eyes fixed on the floor. Despite the absence of dramatic scenes, the tension feels heavier than any theatrical display. Every person here is confronting a truth they spent years avoiding, because once the DNA test result is revealed, none of them can rewrite the story. Judge Lake finally prepares to present the results. The moment feels like standing on the edge of a precipice. Some individuals lean forward, desperate for certainty. Others brace themselves for heartbreak. Even those who have insisted they already know the truth now reveal subtle gestures of fear, clenched hands, bouncing knees, eyes flicking nervously toward the judge. The DNA envelope, sealed and untouched, symbolizes the raw power of truth. It carries no bias, no emotion, no narrative, only scientific reality. But the people waiting for it are full of emotion, and the truth inside will either heal them or fracture them further. Judge Lauren Lake holds the envelope carefully, reminding everyone that whatever the result reveals, the child must remain the priority. She emphasizes that biology does not automatically determine love, but it does determine legal responsibility. Her voice carries the authority of years spent in both family law and human conflict resolution. She speaks not only as a judge, but as someone who understands the shattering emotional impact these revelations can bring. The room stiffens as she prepares to read the results. And with that, the first chapter of this emotional journey reaches its cliffhanger, leaving every heart suspended between hope and fear. The atmosphere inside Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom shifts as the weight of anticipation presses down on every person present. Though no one speaks, the silence becomes a living force, an uninvited witness hovering over the case. Each individual understands that the second chapter of this journey is about to delve deeper into the emotional and legal storm that began long before the doors of this courtroom opened. The questions, fears, hidden truths, and regrets that led them here now converge into one unavoidable moment, facing the consequences of seeking clarity through a DNA test. As Judge Lake holds the envelope, she reminds everyone that the legal system's design is not meant to punish truth, but to reveal it. She explains that the purpose of this inquiry is not judgment of character, but the establishment of fact. Many people, she notes, regret taking DNA tests when the results expose painful realities. Yet almost always, the long-term benefit lies in uncovering certainty. Uncertainty forces families into emotional captivity. Truth, even when painful, frees them from years of doubt. In legal terms, it protects the child's rights. In human terms, it stabilizes identity. Around the room, expressions vary. Some faces show rigid determination, others display exhaustion, and a few reveal quiet despair. The emotional spectrum unfolding here echoes themes often analyzed in legal storytelling platforms like the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, where attorneys discuss the human cost of the justice process. In many ways, this case mirrors countless others where the intersection of law, love, and truth reveals the fragile nature of human relationships. The judge carefully sets the envelope aside for a moment, choosing to examine the foundation of the conflict more deeply before revealing the result. She explains that understanding the emotional and legal landscape is essential for everyone involved. She highlights how the evidence stage in divorce cases, or in paternity cases, often brings forward issues that were ignored for years. Infidelity concerns, financial disagreements, conflicting testimonies, and in some cases, family members influencing perceptions through half-truths or assumptions. These emotional undercurrents often become as significant as the DNA itself. She turns to the family members and asks them to reflect on how their involvement has shaped the situation. Some admit that they may have contributed to escalating tensions. Others maintain that they intervened only because they suspected dishonesty. One relative describes how the family struggled with the situation in silence, fearing that the truth would destroy the fragile peace that remained. Their words echo themes heard in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where individuals confront their mistakes and realize how denial prolongs suffering. Judge Lake listens to their explanations with a steady expression. Her courtroom has seen countless families fractured by assumptions, secrecy, and miscommunication. She explains that while the concept of justice in jurisprudence is rooted in fairness, its human application often requires navigating emotional landscapes far more complex than statutes or legal definitions can capture. Justice is not simply what is proven, it is also the recognition of how the truth shapes futures. The mother speaks again, her voice steadier now but still carrying guilt. She admits that the pressure of maintaining appearances weighed on her heavily throughout the relationship. She confesses that she struggled with loneliness, confusion, and fear of being judged, leading her to avoid confronting certain realities until it was too late. Her emotional vulnerability softens the hardness of earlier accusations, but it does not erase the legal question before the court. The alleged father, on the other hand, describes the emotional turbulence he has endured. He recounts his fear of raising a child that might not be biologically his, the internal conflict between love and doubt, and the silent battles he fought alone. His commitment to the child is unquestioned, yet the fear of being misled has eroded his peace. His story resembles many told on DNA test cheating stories forums, where individuals grapple with loyalty, betrayal, and the burden of not knowing. Judge Lauren Lake patiently connects these emotional accounts back to legal principles. She explains that in family courts across the world, especially in cases related to Supreme Court child support guidelines, biological truth directly impacts financial obligations, custody rights, and long-term planning. She stresses that love may be emotional, but legal responsibility is grounded in fact. And today, fact is what the court seeks. The witnesses expand on the family's history. Some mention previous attempts to resolve conflicts privately, while others describe moments when arguments erupted into bitterness. They recall periods of temporary reconciliation, followed by renewed suspicion. Every testimony reveals a layer of complexity, proof that this case is not simply about biology, but about the emotional architecture built around a child's life. A relative compares the situation to adoption stories' full episodes, where families must navigate heartbreak, uncertain identity, and ultimately the quest for stability. In those stories, the ultimate goal is always the child's well-being, regardless of who is biologically connected. This observation resonates deeply across the room, reminding everyone why they are here. Judge Lake acknowledges that while families often fear DNA testing, the regret usually comes from emotional pain, not from the truth itself. The truth simply reveals what already existed. It is the actions surrounding the truth, she explains, that determine the future path. Her insight reflects the recurring themes seen in legal analysis podcasts like the Divorce Course podcast, which often highlight how miscommunication and emotional avoidance become as damaging as actual betrayal. The mother closes her eyes briefly as the judge speaks, perhaps silently preparing herself for whatever truth the envelope contains. The father sits rigidly, his breath shallow, each second stretching into an eternity. Family members shift awkwardly, uncertain whether they should support, distance themselves, or brace for impact. Judge Lake explains that before revealing the DNA results, she must ensure that both parties understand what the outcome means, emotionally and legally. She outlines the responsibilities tied to paternity, including financial contribution, decision-making rights, healthcare determinations, and the future involvement of both parties in the child's upbringing. She mentions how even the Supreme Court acknowledges that child support is not merely financial. It is part of the foundational stability a child requires. She also highlights how the legal system protects the rights of children above all else. The question is not who is comfortable with the result, but what truth serves the child's best interest. The room absorbs these words with quiet reverence. The father then expresses his final thoughts before the results. He speaks of sleepless nights, emotional exhaustion, and the responsibility he feels regardless of the outcome. His voice trembles when he admits fearing the loss of the bond he shares with the child. His testimony mirrors the emotional power often heard in recovery-oriented stories where honesty, no matter how painful, leads to growth. The mother takes her turn, acknowledging that she too has lived with fear. She feared losing respect, feared damaging her family, and feared being judged for past decisions she struggled to explain. Her honesty, though imperfect, reflects an internal battle many individuals face when confronted with the truth they attempted to avoid. Judge Lauren Lake gently reminds them that this case is not about shamming or punishing mistakes, but about creating a path forward. She describes how the law must balance truth, compassion, and responsibility, highlighting that modern jurisprudence recognizes the emotional reality behind every legal dispute. With all testimonies completed, she finally reaches for the envelope again. The room becomes so quiet it feels suspended in time. Every breath is shallow. Every heartbeat echoes louder than before. She explains that the DNA test is a scientific tool, not an emotional weapon. It carries no opinion, no judgment, no narrative, only fact. Yet these facts will alter the trajectory of several lives the moment they are spoken aloud. She begins to open the envelope slowly, deliberately. Her expression remains neutral, not cold but steady, reflecting her responsibility to deliver truth without bias. Some people look away, others stare fixedly at her hands. One relative grips the back of a chair as though bracing for impact. Judge Lake removes the paper from the envelope. She holds it gently but firmly, keenly aware that every word on the page will reshape the dynamic before her. Then, after what feels like an eternity, she begins to read. But the result itself, the fallout, and the emotional shockwave that follows belongs to the next chapter, where truth reveals itself completely. The courtroom sits frozen as Judge Lauren Lake lifts her eyes from the document in her hands. Every person present senses that the next few seconds will mark a dividing line in their lives, before the truth and after it. The air feels dense, as if the truth itself is preparing to land with the force of impact. Even though no dramatic scene unfolds, the quiet itself becomes overwhelming. It is the kind of moment often explored in the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, where attorneys reflect on how one piece of evidence can redefine the entire trajectory of a family. Judge Lake takes a measured breath before announcing the result. Her voice remains steady, yet it carries the gravity of someone who understands the emotional consequence of every syllable. She knows that this is the point where the abstract legal concepts discussed earlier, fairness, responsibility, jurisprudence, the child's rights, transform into practical reality. When she reads the result, reactions ripple through the courtroom like invisible shockwaves. Some faces collapse into relief, others crumble under the weight of unexpected truth. In one corner, a family member covers their mouth, trying to suppress an emotional outburst. In another, someone turns away, unable to process what the DNA test has just revealed. True to the phrase, truth changes everything, the moment instantly reshapes relationships, loyalties, and long-held narratives. The result, now spoken aloud, leaves the alleged father stunned. His shoulders tense as he processes what he just heard. Whether the result confirms or disconfirms his paternity, the emotional impact strikes him deeply. For months or years, he has lived in the dual reality of hope and doubt. Now, that duality collapses into a single truth. This is the moment many describe when they say people regret taking DNA tests, not because the truth was wrong, but because the truth forces them to confront realities they tried to postpone. The mother reacts differently. Her shoulders tremble slightly, revealing the emotional burden she has carried for far too long. Whether she is relieved, ashamed, or heartbroken, her expression reveals the complexity of a person who has lived in the shadow of uncertainty. In previous moments, she defended herself with determination, anger, and frustration. But now, stripped of all defense mechanisms, she appears simply human, someone grappling with consequences she didn't feel prepared to face. Judge Lauren Lake lets the moment settle. She gives them space to breathe, to absorb, to feel. Her courtroom is always a place of truth, but it is also a place of human compassion. She understands that no matter how painful the result may be, the individuals before her deserve dignity as they process it. She has seen this exact dynamic in cases discussed on the Divorce Course podcast, where legal truth meets emotional turmoil and families must reconstruct themselves from the fragments. After a pause, she begins to speak again, explaining the legal implications with clarity and sensitivity. If the alleged father is confirmed as the biological parent, she outlines the responsibilities that now follow, consistent with Supreme Court child support guidelines. She reminds him that the law expects him to contribute financially, emotionally, and logistically to the child's upbringing. Support is not a